Hello everybody, welcome to Friday Night Live from the Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show, Game Week 19, Swede FA. So it's FA Cup this weekend, so we don't need to do anything with our cloud teams, not until Tuesday at any rate, so you can enjoy seeing how your players do or don't get on in the FA Cup this weekend. Some will play, some will probably not, and then we can reconvene on Tuesday for a midweek round, and the following weekend round will be here sort of back to back with only one day in between, which will be next Friday. So in the meantime, we're going to have a look to see what happened last weekend. Going to do a bit of a reflection on team so far of the season, and to have a look and see what I would be doing if we had an overhaul in cloud like we used to have in Sky. So let's see where we're going, let's find out, let's get into it. Okay, let's have a look at the team, see how we got on last game week. So in goal we had Matt Sells, who was brought in for Monday Night Football in place of Muric, who's lost his place in the Ipswich side. Third goalkeeper transfer, I think, for me this season. At the back, Robinson 1 point, Van Heck 4, Van Dijk 2, Saliba, who was captain on Wednesday as part of last game week rather than a week before. So he's played twice, 11 points. In midfield, Palmer 9, Foden 9, Gordon, who was captain, he was brought in for the injured Bowen on Saturday. He had 10 points doubled up to 20. And then up front, Mo Salah, captain on Sunday. He scored the penalty against Manchester United. Nicholas Jackson, who's not doing much, but still got good games ahead. And Dom Solanke, who's been in the side a couple of weeks now and scored 9 points. So 107 altogether. Let's have a look and see where we are on the leaderboard. So at the top, Shane White's back again. Wexico United, 1,913 points. Chris Parry in second, 1,902. Mark Hawes, 1,901. Joint fourth, Ben Parkin and Melvin Poole. Thomas Lavelle in sixth, Mark McFadden seventh, Mark Berry eighth, James Linden of Planet FPL in ninth, and rounding out the top 10 is Barry Morrison. So let's have a look and see how these points were accumulated in the match centres last week. So as suggested, Arsenal played twice because they played on Wednesday away to Brentford. It was Brentford 1, Arsenal 3. Brian Mbeumo scored for Brentford. Goals for Arsenal for Jesus, Marino and Martinelli. In the tier points, Brentford, Mbeumo with the tackles, Collins with the passes, Lewis Potter and Mbeumo with shots, all tier 1. For Arsenal, Calafiori and Marino with tier 1 tackles, Partey with tier 3. Saliba with tier 1 passes, and in the shots, Marino, Partey, Martinelli all with tier 1, and Gabriel Jesus with tier 2. Early kickoff last Saturday was Tottenham 1, Newcastle 2. Much changed Tottenham team, but they took the lead through Solanke. And Gordon and Isak, no surprise to see that they were the guys who scored for Newcastle. In the tiers, Spence and Johnson with tier 1 tackles, Porro and Kulusevski with tier 3. Nobody in the passes for Tottenham. In the shots, Sarr and Solanke, both tier 2. Off the bench was Reguilon, he had tier 1 tackles. For Newcastle, in the tackles, Bruno Guimaraes with tier 1. Botman and Joe Linton with tier 2. Nobody in the passes, so there weren't no passes tiers at all in the entire game. Dubravka with tier 1 saves, and in the shots, Gordon tier 2 and Isak tier 1. Excuse me. So Bournemouth 1, Everton 0. Goal scorer was Brooks, who was off the bench. In the tackles, tier 1, For Bournemouth was Zabani and Cook. Nobody in the passes. In the shots, Cliver and Evan Nielsen tier 1, Utara tier 2, Semenyo tier 3, and off the bench with his goal was Brooks with tier 1. For Everton, much ado about nothing really. Tier 2 tackles for Gay and tier 3 saves for Pickford. Aston Villa 2, Leicester 1. Goal scorers were Barkley and Bailey for Villa and Mavadidi for Leicester. More tiers here. So for Villa in the tackles, Dina and Barkley tier 1, Cash tier 3. In the passes, Kamara tier 1 and Mings and Konsa tier 3. In the shots, Cash, Barkley, Tielemans tier 1 and Bailey tier 2. Nothing for Watkins, only 8 passes, no shots. For Leicester, Thomas, Samari, Winks and Ayew all with tier 1 tackles. Stolarczyk with tier 3, 3 saves for tier 1. And Maviadidi and Vardy both with tier 1 shots. Crystal Palace 1, Chelsea 1. Goal scorers were Mateta and Cole Palmer. In the tiers for Palace, Lacroix tier 1 tackles, Mitchell and Munoz tier 3. Nobody in the passes. Lacroix, Richards, Lerma, Eze, Mateta and Kamara all with tier 1 shots. For Chelsea, Fernandez tier 1 tackles. In the passes, Cucurella, Gusto tier 1. Achiampong tier 2 and Colwill tier 3. Sanchez with tier 3 saves and Palmer only shot on target for 1. Manchester City 4, West Ham 1. Goal scorers Erling Haaland with 2, Foden with 1 and a Vladimir Kufal own goal. And for West Ham, Fulkrug was the goal scorer. In the tiers for Manchester City, tier 3 tackles Kovacic, passes Lewis tier 1, Kanji tier 2, Ortega with tier 1 saves, shots Lewis, Savinho who got 3 assists, Silva, De Bruyne and Foden all with tier 1 and tier 2 was Haaland. For West Ham, Kufal tier 1 tackles, Paqueta tier 3, nobody in the passes, Areola with tier 2 saves and shots Kufal, Souček, Somerville and Fulkrug all with tier 1. Southampton 0, Brentford 5. Goal scorers for Brentford were Schade and Buemo twice, Lewis Potter and Wissa. Tier points for tackles Southampton, Ugachukwa, tier 3, Howard Bellis tier 1 passes, Ramsdale tier 3 saves and Onuachu tier 1 shots. For Brentford, tackles tier 1 Ruslev and Jensen and Mbuemo, Norgard tier 2, nobody in the passes. For shots, Lewis Potter, Ruslev, Schade all tier 1 and Wissa and Mbuemo both tier 3. Evening game, Brighton 1, Arsenal 1. Goal scorers were Pedro with a dodgy penalty, you might say. I think it was, but a lot of people said it was harshly given. But in my opinion, it was definitely a foul, and if it's inside the box, it's a penalty. And Noweri for Arsenal, who unfortunately for them went off injured at half-time. In the tiers, tackles for Brighton, Estupinan tier 1, Van Heck and Julio in the passes, Van Heck tier 2, Julio tier 3. In the shots, Estupinan, Gruder, Pedro and Webster, all with tier 1. For Arsenal, tackles Partey tier 1, passes Gabriel and Partey tier 1, Saliba tier 3. In the saves, Raya, 3 saves for tier 1, and in the shots, Rice, Jesus and Nwari, all with tier 1. Then the Sunday games, Fulham 2, Ipswich 2, a brace for Jimenez, both penalties for Fulham, and Schmodix and Delap with another penalty for Ipswich. In the tier points for Fulham, Castagne and Wilson, both with tier 1 tackles. Plenty of passes around for Fulham. Castagne tier 1, Anderson and Lukic tier 2, with Bassi and Kearney tier 3. And in shots, Jimenez tier 3, and off the bench, Muniz tier 1. For Ipswich, no tackles, no passes, only 3 shots on target for Broadhead, Schmodics and Delap. Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2 in the Super Sunday game. Goal scorers were Gakpo and Mo Salah off the penalty spot for Liverpool, and Lisandro Martinez and Amad Diallo for Manchester United. In the tiers for Liverpool, nothing in the tackles, nothing in the passes. 6 shots on target, I think there. Van Dijk, McAllister, Gakpo, Salah, Bradley and Jota, all with 1 each. For Manchester United, tackles for Martinez, Dalot and Bruno Fernandes, tier 1. Mainu and Agate, tier 2. Nobody in the passes. And saves, Anana, tier 2. Shots for Martinez, Fernandes, Diallo and Højlund, all with tier 1. And then Monday Night Football was Wolves 0, Nottingham Forest 3. Goal scorers for Forest were Gibbs White, Chris Wood and Awonyi, who came off the bench. Tier-wise for Wolves, Gomez with tier 1 tackles. In the passes, Aït-Nouri and Gomez tier 1, Bueno tier 2 and Doherty tier 3. In the shots, Gomez, different Gomez, I think it's Toti Gomez, tier 1. Tier 2 for Bueno and tier 3 for Strand Larsen. For Nottingham Forest, in the tackles we had Murillo and Anderson, plus Silva, who came on in the 69th minute. They all got tier 1 tackles. Nobody in the passes. Matt Sells with tier 3 saves for a 12-pointer. In the shots, Gibbs White, Wood and Awonyi, all with tier 1. So let's have a look at some ownership then. Cole Palmer still sitting at the head of affairs. More than 3/4, close to 4 in 5 managers having him now. Mo Salah just over 2/3 of us, 68%. Then nobody else over 50 now. Erling Haaland's next best at 47, coming back into form. Isak, very much in form, 47% as well. Gabriel, now the highest owned defender, he's on 42. William Saliba just behind him on 41. Dean Henderson, highest owned goalkeeper, 35. Van Heck, 31. Then a bit of a drop down to less than 1 in 4 now for Robinson, 23%. Van Dijk, 22. Gordon, he's had a bit of a rise there, I think, 21. João Gomez, 2 tiers again for him this week, 20%. Smith Rowe, 20%. Seems to have lost his starting position for Fulham. Gvardiol, 20%. City back in form. And Buemo, those that have kept him's done really, really well, 19%. Jackson, wish I had Buemo instead of Jackson, to be honest. 19%. 18 for Jackson. Saka, 17%. He's not going to be back for a couple of months, so people need to be moving him on. Bruno Guimaraes, 16%. Murillo, been a great buy for Forest at 2.3 million, 16%. And David Raya at 16%. And we'll have a quick look at some points. So top of the shop, only person over 200 is Mo Salah. Cole Palmer and Erling Haaland next best at 160 and 157. Then Mbeumo and Isak in the 130s. And then you've got Van Dijk, Saliba, Wood and Cunha in the 120s. Sells, Jackson, Watkins over 110. Exactly 110 is Gabriel, Saka and Gvardiol. And then rounding out the the top 20 are Bruno Fernandes, James Maddison, bit under the radar, 107 points, but not an under the radar price at 5.2 million. Jared Bowen, 107 points, but he needs to be shifted now if you've still got him. Jordan Pickford, the next goalkeeper in there at 106, and Ola Anya for Forest, another one, 2.4 million for Aina, or Anya, 105. And a quick look at bonuses here. So Saliba and Kovacic top at 43, Van Dijk next at 42, and a few on 38, Caicedo, Munoz and Haaland. 36s are Van Heck, Salah and Flecken. 35s, Gvardiol, Lisandro Martinez and Partey. 34s, Ruben Diaz and João Gomez. 33, Colwill. 32, Christian Romero and Bruno Fernandes. 31s are Jan Bednarek and Noussair Mazraoui. And Taylor Harwood-Bellis at 30. So also this week I thought we'd have a look at team of the season so far, and looking ahead to what we could anticipate if we had the luxury of an overhaul in cloud, similar to what we used to have in Sky. So these are the filtered players by points for the season so far, and same with all fantasy games really. You need to have a combination of the top point scorers and those that score a lot of points per million to enable those high scorers to be in your team. So we can see here Salah, Palmer, Haaland and Mbeumo, highest point scorers, and quite noticeably Mbeumo of those is the highest points per million because he's the cheapest. So you could probably get all of those in your side. Van Dijk, he's the top scorer in defender, and you could probably get him in your side as well. But with Liverpool starting to come into a bit more of a sticky patch, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. Cunha and Isak, both high performing, but the same as we've seen all through this cloud season, too many forwards and not enough spaces to put them in. Same can be said for Wood and Jackson. Two keepers come next in Sells and Pickford, and the one that's the highest points per million is Sells because he's the cheapest, so you'd probably stick him in. And then we've got Watkins, another forward. Gabriel, he's scoring lots of points, but is he scoring a lot more than some we'll see further on down this line? Maddison, one of the lowest on points per million here. Gvardiol, he's done well, same as Saliba. Henderson, another keeper. If you needed some money, you could get him in. And then we come into the cheaper defenders. So Hall there, 37 points per million. Konate, he's only at 25, but he's missed quite a few games. He's back now. Sanchez, another goalkeeper. Strand Larsen's doing very well in points per million, 35. Then you've got another goalkeeper there, and Anana. Bowen, one of the lowest in points per million because he's quite expensive and is now injured. And then Caicedo, he's done better than I thought he had when I looked at the stats. He's only 3.6 million. Then you look at Murillo, top of the shop here, 41.3. So you would think that he would have a good chance of getting into the team. So I'm just going to move this back now. We're going to look just at the last 4 game weeks and see if this makes a difference. So then the top point scorers now, you've got Salah and Isak way out in front at 60 and 58. Then Sells is third. Then you've got quite a few there between like Mbeumo at 41 down to Alexander-Arnold at 30. And you'll notice there are quite a few Newcastle, Nottingham Forest and Liverpool players. They've done very well. So let's have a look and see what kind of a team we could make. And I'll just move this back a bit and we'll see what we have. So this is the team I've put together. We have Sells in goal, Van Dijk, Murillo, Aina and Hall at the back, Palmer, Gordon and Savinho in midfield, and Mbeumo, Haaland and Salah up front. Now between them they would have scored 1,330 points on their own already this season without any of them being captained on any of their days. So a fairly reasonable team, some good sides there going forward. I wouldn't be nailed on for Van Dijk, but Liverpool are going to have an extra game compared to everybody else. Savinho is a bit hot at the minute and he's cheap at 4.0, and it is missing Isak. But you could, if you wanted to, you could remove Mbeumo for Isak and Gordon for Caicedo, and it's the very similar price. Just get rid of these, you can see the prices at the bottom there. If I just show full tabs, so 49.8 million this. So you could put Isak and Caicedo in for those. But the first thing I notice, we don't have any coverage here for Thursday, which is Ipswich against Brighton and Manchester United against Southampton. So I think what I'd be tempted to do, so if we look at the calendar, we see that Brentford play Manchester City and Liverpool in their next two games. Then they don't play Crystal Palace until 26th of January on the Sunday. So I think what I'd be tempted to do is to leave Mbeumo out and pick maybe a Brighton player, Pedro, for Ipswich, Manchester United and Everton. Then you could swap him to Mbeumo on that Sunday. The other players playing on Thursday are Ipswich. So if you wanted, you could do the same with Roy Delap, but they're playing Manchester City and Liverpool following Brighton. You could do Southampton, but they play on the Sunday, so there's no fixture gain. And Southampton, again, you could do them, but who wants a Southampton player when they play Manchester United away, Nottingham Forest away, and Newcastle at home? So I think what I'd be inclined to do is put Pedro in here, and then you can move Mbeumo on. So if I do that now, Pedro, he could be captain there against Brighton, against Ipswich, which I think is reasonable. Then we move along. So again, on single game day, Monday 20th, we've got Chelsea against Wolves. So we've got Palmer, likely to be the best captain. So then we move along and we'll see 25th of January, we had a full complement of players on the Saturday. So on the Sunday, this is where we're bringing Mbeumo back for Pedro to give us a captaincy. We'll know that he's playing because it's the first kickoff. Then we move along again. So Saturday the 1st of February, we've got plenty of players. Sunday the 2nd, we've either got Mbeumo or our Manchester City duo. Monday Night Football, Chelsea v West Ham, we've got Palmer. Then I've gone through the FA Cup weekend. Then Valentine's Day, Brighton against Chelsea, so we've got Palmer again. And we've got quite a lot of players there on Saturday the 15th. Sunday we've got Liverpool, so it's just Van Dijk and Salah. So they're playing at 2 o'clock, so we'll see if they're playing in the game. Then the last weekend of February, Leicester against Brentford is Friday night, so we've got Mbeumo in place. Saturday the 22nd, we've only got Palmer. A lot of our players there are playing on Sunday the 23rd, so we'd expect a good captaincy that day. And then we come to midweek again, so fairly split there on the 25th and 26th. And then we get to end of February, and then the March fixtures, we've got a couple of weeks until they're going to be announced. So, a reasonable team, get us through a couple of months, save some transfers. Looks like we've got good captaincy, you only need to use one. There will be some others to come in, no doubt. And we could see that Liverpool game against Everton is rearranged for some time round about February as well. As long as Liverpool don't need to go in the playoff round for the Champions League, I think it'll be one of those days. So then we're back to what we want to do this week. So the matches are on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll be here with midweek matchups, hopefully in time to get the lineups for all of the games on Tuesday, because they're 7:30 and 8 o'clock. So enjoy your football over the weekend. I'm going to enjoy some rugby as well. It's the Champions Cup. Leicester are playing Ulster tomorrow night, so I should be watching that. If you like the video, please leave it a like as well. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please do. And if you want to use the transfer planners that I've been utilising here in the last part of this stream, then you can find that on Patreon, patreon.com/Cloudy Sky Fantasy Football Show. And we'll see you next week for midweek matchups. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.